This Tudor Black Bay 58 to my left is the only Tudor that you'll ever need. Let's find out why. Welcome back to Time on the Wrist at Chisholm Hunter. My name is Harrison as always, and finally it is here. We have the Tudor Black Bay 58. You guys have been requesting this one like mad, and it's finally here. So let's start with the specs of this watch. And as we go through the specs, I'll be discussing why I think this is the perfect one watch collection Tudor. The only Tudor you will ever need if you have a one watch collection. Let's begin with the specs. Let's begin with the case diameter. So the case diameter comes in at 39 millimeters. Now, in the watch industry as a whole, everything is beginning to shrink down. People are more attracted to smaller, thinner designed watches. We can see this in the IWC Big Pilot, we can see this in the Longines Hydro Conquest, we can see this in the Tudor Black Bay, or even the Tudor Black Bay Pro, which is a little bit smaller. So I'm a fan of the size change here. I'm a fan of a slimmer case, I'm a fan of a smaller case, but I don't think I would go this small. I do prefer my Black Bay that is sitting at home. I got a little bit too excited and forgot it, but I do have the original Black Bay ETA movement sitting at home. So I do prefer the sizing of that, but it really depends on your wrist size. Moving on to the case thickness, which is probably the most attractive feature apart from the dial about this watch. I love how thin this watch is. It sits really closely to the wrist. It nestles really nicely under a shirt cuff. And Harrison, be quiet, just get to the stats. So it comes in at 11.8 millimeters in thickness. When you compare this to other divers in the industry or other sports watches in the industry, it is a thin watch. So I really like that design. The lug width on this The lug width on this Tudor comes in at 20 millimeters, which makes this watch a lot more compact than other sports watches or other watches in the Tudor range. And with that compactness comes durability. This watch is extremely durable, and that's why I've picked it for this video. When we relate it back to the title, if you are only going to have one Tudor, you want it to be durable and fit any environment that you put it in. And this fits every single environment that you can put it in. Now that we have covered the case and the specs, let's get this on the scales and see how much it weighs. Remember that this comes in all bracelet. This is the bracelet version that has all of the links attached. So this comes in at 146 grams. So even though it's a smaller case, it still is pretty hefty. And actually, stay there, I'm gonna go and grab the Black Bay 41 and we're gonna see how they compare. Right, so that is us, got the Black Bay 41, as you got focus on that. It looks quite nice actually. It's actually very similar to the 58. I do prefer the 41, but that's just personal preference. So let's get this on the scales. This comes in at 185 grams. Now, can you see what I mean about the differences in size? That is such a hefty watch comparison to the 39. So I do see the attraction in the 39. It's slimmer, it's more compact, it's easier to put on, but that is handsome. It's big, it's burly, and I like that. Moving quickly on to the fact that Chisholm Hunter are authorized retailers for Tudor watches. If you want a Tudor watch, if you want that one watch collection, that perfect one watch collection, head to chisholmhunter.co.uk. And now we will move on to the case and the bracelet. Case and the bracelet of this model come in steel, and I love the way that the steel reflects the light. It looks really bright and makes that black dial and black bezel really pop out. It has predominantly brushed steel with the occasional little speck of polished, which highlights the curves of that case and that bracelet. It looks extremely handsome, but what I would love to see, especially on this model with this color combination, is titanium. Can you imagine if Tudor made a titanium Black Bay 58 with a splash of red on the bezel? That would look sick. The bracelet on this model tapers in really nicely towards the buckle, and it has a deployant clasp. It has a safety latch just there with a deployant clasp just here. Now, I would prefer to put a NATO strap on this, and let me explain. Normally, when you put NATO straps on sport watches, it makes them look too thick because the NATO strap has to slide underneath the watch and push it up so it raises the head of the watch. But because this comes in at 11.8 or 11.9 millimeters in thickness, it wouldn't raise it by that much. So I just think it would suit so much better. Moving on to the face, the bezel, and the crown, which are the three main features to me about this watch that just make it stand out so much. But before we do, it is time for the wrist check, the tradition around here at Chisholm Hunter. I've had a disaster. I've had an absolute disaster. I've left mine in the office. I was showing someone my watch and I've left it in the office. But what is on your wrist today? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing all the weird and wonderful watches. Moving straight onto that crown, it has a screw down crown, which gives this watch a waterproofness of 200 meters. It also has the Tudor rose, the iconic Tudor rose in relief just on the crown there. Now, an interesting thing about that Tudor rose is before the in-house movements came in with Tudor, the watches actually used to sport that rose on the dial instead of the shield. And the ETA watch that I have, the Burgundy Black Bay 41, has that rose on the dial. There's an interesting fact. Let's move on to the bezel. The bezel on this model is a unidirectional rotatable bezel in steel with a 60-minute graduated disc in matte black anodized aluminium. It also has pink glided markings and numerals. And what's more to this bezel is the fact that it actually has a splash, the most satisfying splash of red on the bezel at the 12 o'clock mark, with a little lume dot just in the center. This is such a nice little colored detail that not many watch brands would have the boldness to do, but Tudor have done it, and I love the fact they've done it. And further to this, the actual sound, and I'm going to put this into the mic so you can hear it, the actual sound when you turn the bezel is so satisfying. It's honestly, and I kid you not when I say this, one of the best bezels I've ever felt. Moving on to the dial of this model, it comes in a matte black, and the hands and the indices have coating, a gilt coating, which is a gold kind of coating, which makes this watch look extremely vintage, but also modern at the same time. It makes it highly readable when you reflect it in the light, and it is, you know what it is? It's one of those watches that looks modern, but will remain to look modern for 10, 20, 30 years to come. It's one of those models that has a vintage splash so early on when you buy it that it won't age, if that makes any sense. To add to this, the hands are the iconic snowflake hands, which have been with Tudor for a large portion of their history. And I like the fact that they're staying true to their roots. They're still carrying a lot of things over, but bring something out that's a little bit new. The hands and the indices are filled with super luminova, and so is that little dot on the bezel. Let's not tease anymore. Let's have a look at the lume. Now this, of course, is a really, really attractive lume, but what I think is a better lume is the lume of the Black Bay Pro, because it doesn't really have any cupping around the lume, which makes it look 3D. It actually looks like it has 3D blocks on the dial, and it just looks absolutely stunning. Now, we've talked about this in another video. I'll plug it up here if you want to see that, but the Black Bay Pro has nailed the lume. The movement in this model is the in-house caliber MT5402. It's a self-winding mechanical movement with a bi-directional rotor system. It has a power reserve of approximately 70 hours, which is pretty damn incredible for the price. It also beats at a frequency of 28,800 VPH and has 27 joules. This movement was released in 2018, and so was the Black Bay 58. And since then, over the 4 years, it has not lost any of its popularity, and it's no wonder why. This remains, in my eyes, the most handsome of the Black Bay bunch. I just think it would age extremely well. Now, relating it back to the title of this video, relating it back to why I think it's the best, or the only Tudor that you will need, why I think it's the one watch collection Tudor, let's talk about it. I mean, age-wise, this watch will age extremely well. It can be used as a sports watch, it can be used as a dress watch, it is an all-rounder. It's compact, it is durable, it's made from stainless steel, and it has a brilliant movement on it. A movement that is in-house to Tudor. And this is why I think this is the perfect one watch collection. This is the only Black Bay you'll ever need. This full package, the whole of this watch comes in at £3,010, but I want you to think about something for a second. You can dress this up You can dress this down. You can take this on hill walks with you. You can go swimming with this watch. This watch is an all-rounder. It is the only watch that you need in your collection. So I think the money is justified. It doesn't go without saying that this has an in-house movement. It has a brilliant bezel, it has beautiful colors, a vintage inspired feel, it has an amazing bracelet, incredible dimensions. I mean, the list goes on, but I think the key point here is that this watch can go anywhere and it can do anything. And with that said, I would love to know your opinions on this. I would love to know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you not? Please let me know in the comments. What Tudor would you go for if you had one Tudor in your collection? Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Time on the Wrist at Chisholm Hunter. My name is Harrison, as always, and I will be back in 2 days. Please hit this subscribe button if you want to see more, and I will see you guys next time.